Hello and welcome to my Neurodivergent Diary with me, Kitty Cowell. In this podcast, I talk about all things neurodivergent, and in today's episode, I have my friend, content creator, artist, and musician, Demi Jay. Let's get into it.
Hello.
I guess probably just to start with, I should say we actually only met each other in the past few months, really, haven't we?
Yeah, I think we met first at the HMAs, wasn't it?
Yeah, exactly. From the internet to reality.
Yeah.
And then I was like, yo, are you neurodivergent? And you're like, why?
What for?
And I was like, because I have a podcast. So yeah, please tell me what your journey is of being neurodivergent. I think you said that part of it is undiagnosed as well. Is that right? But you kind of know that you think,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm undiagnosed, but my sister has ADHD and autism. And I know that it's quite hereditary and things like that. We also see a lot of traits in my mum, whether she wants to admit it or not.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I think just learning stuff from my sister just sort of made me realize that maybe my sensory issues, I've got a lot of sensory issues and I have since I was really young, like really weird things. And then sort of putting that into play, like speaking to her, she's probably like, maybe, it is this. And it just makes a lot of sense really. But I feel like for me, myself, I can sort of cope with day-to-day life, whereas she can't. So for me, I think I don't really need to be medicated or sort of any help with it. I can sort of just get on with it myself. But I'd love to know, but the waiting list and stuff is just so long for things like that. I just think I'm just quite happy as I am.
Yeah. And the internet gives us so many resources now, which it's kind of a difficult one because I love that we have that at our fingertips. And I think it's helped so many of us to realize certain things. But then I'm also like, oh, are we misdiagnosing ourselves? It's a
Yeah.
difficult place to be. But yeah, so sorry, just to go back to you for a second before we carry on talking about neurodivergent life. You, Demi, you are a content creator, like a TikToker.
I guess.
And yeah, I know, we're all like, I guess I do
Uh,
that now. And what's your the rest of the your life, because you do sit a few different things, don't you? You've got a small business, an art business,
mhm.
and then yeah, what else do you tell me your things, intro yourself.
Okay. So I'm a Virgo, so I'm very creative.
Love that.
So everything I do is creative. So my full-time job is in graphic design. So I work in the travel industry doing graphics, so sort of brochures, stuff for the actual physical shops as well, posters, basically selling fancy holidays to the Maldives and stuff. So I do all of the design
Nice.
stuff for that. And then obviously I'm in a band as well, multiple bands, should I say. 'Cause
Are
I have two.
you in lots of bands? I didn't know that.
Yeah, I'm in two original stuff, and then we're just starting to do a little covers band as well, so we can just do pub gigs and get some dosh. So yeah, got a lot of music stuff going on. And then obviously it's my small business, so that's sort of graphics as well and art. So that's my own personal art, which I sell prints. Starting to do t-shirts soon as well, which is gonna be pretty cool. And then yeah, content creation, I guess, TikTok, if you call it that.
That's
Video.
sick. Do you know, I don't know loads about this kind of stuff, but and I know it's different between men and women, so I could be talking absolute shit, but I'm a Pisces, and I know that Virgo is the opposite, but we're meant to be really similar at the same time as opposites. And I am so creative. I have 5 jobs, that are all in the
Yeah.
creative world. And I also think, as neurodivergent people, because did you say you have dyslexia or no? I can't remember.
No.
No, not dyslexic, but you think you might be ADHD slash
Yeah.
on the autism spectrum.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially ADHD, right? I'm dyslexic, but they are talking now a lot more about how traits from dyslexia kind of fall into like similar traits as ADHD. So basically, like in the neurodiverse spectrum, there are so many crossovers, and like dyslexia was always looked at as like spelling and maths, right? But then there were all these other things that like you were saying about sensory issues and things like that, that I mean, I think also as a kid, I didn't really understand when we're normal, or I thought I was kind of in two minds. I'm like, oh my God, I'm an absolute freak. Then I'm like, is this shit normal? You know, like you just don't know anything about it. We weren't taught about it. But yeah, and I am looking into trying to get diagnosed with ADHD, or to see if I have ADHD. And you're right, it's really long, or it's really expensive. It's so complicated. I'm going down this route, which is meant to be quicker. And like, we'll see, because I haven't had anything, you know, major happen yet. But it's just the whole ADHD thing is so fascinating. I think it makes so much sense that like both of us obviously have traits of ADHD, and we also have like so many ventures going on in our lives, which is such a like true trait, isn't it? Yeah, I think, I don't know about you, like with school, like what were you good at? Were you like, was art your main thing, or?
Yeah, so I did sort of music and performing arts. So I was like very like into like anything drama, like anything like creative, and then anything sort of academic. So like English, I was always fine with. Like I quite enjoyed, like I enjoy reading and poetry and stuff like that. I think because that goes with like music as well. Like poetry is sort of like same as like lyric writing. So I always enjoyed that. But like anything like maths, like science, like I really, really struggled with. Like I used to come home and just cry because I just didn't understand like certain stuff, and I get really overwhelmed with like that sort of stuff. But anything which I actually really enjoyed and was creative, I just felt like relaxed, like at home, like I could do it. Yeah, that was sort of my school journey.
When you left school, did you know what you wanted to do?
Yeah, so I went to college to do like it was like film production. I wanted to do like videography. And then I sort of strayed away from that. And then obviously took sort of graphics instead when I went to uni. But yeah, college just I didn't have a great time in college. I was going through a lot like at the time personally, like with anxiety and stuff like that. So a lot of the time I just wasn't even there anyway. I did a lot of it from home myself. Um, but uni, I did well at uni. I liked uni. I had such a like a small class. There was only like seven of us in there, so it was very like relaxed, and I didn't get anxious or overwhelmed. I don't think I would have enjoyed myself or done as well if I was in like a big like class with lots of people. I also lived at home during uni. I didn't do halls because for me, I just don't think I wouldn't have been able to like cope with living with people, like the uncleanliness and sharing like toilets and stuff like that just wouldn't be for me. I'd get really overwhelmed.
Where did you go to uni?
I did 2 years in Brighton Met, but it was at like a college campus. So it was like an arts campus. So it was smaller classes because it was only for arts over there, which was great. And I did my final year in London Met, which was a little bit bigger. But cause like COVID and stuff, like we just weren't really there that much anyway.
No, that sounds really nice. I
Yeah.
found it really difficult. I went to Man Met originally in
Mhm.
Manchester, and I only lasted like 2 months. And it was like a multitude of things. Like I was excited to kind of go away and like, you know, leave home, like to be, you
Yeah.
know, the beginning of doing that. But I guess everybody's always going to be a bit anxious about that. But then the people in my halls were really unfriendly. Like no one came out and made friends, or they had like mates in the other halls, so they just left ours, so it was really like empty.
Yeah.
One of the people I was living with tried to, well, not on purpose, but nearly burnt down our flat twice. It was
Gosh.
fucking so stressful. And then I ended up going to Newport, South Wales, like part of like
Okay.
Cardiff and South Wales uni. That's where it ended up being for like a long time, and I loved it. But yeah, that whole thing you're saying, like I ended up, because I moved like mid-term, I
Mm.
was in like a shared house straight away rather than halls. I just had
Yeah.
to get like a room. It was fucking great. Like the kitchen, I just didn't cook there. I like I got like a, you know, a boyfriend quite early on, and would go to his house, or I would get takeaway. It was so rank.
Yeah.
And like, because you live with your girlfriend now, right?
No, I live
Oh, do
she's
you not?
I live with like a family friend. I rent a room. So yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, how did you find that? Because I personally have had so many issues over the years, like living on my own. I lived with my ex-boyfriend for like 4 years when I was in Wales, and then when I moved to London, I've always been in like, you know, just renting a room, like shared accommodation. And the whole cleanliness thing, honestly, like I now luckily live on my own, which has taken a long time and a lot of
Yeah.
work, so expensive, but like for my mental health, it's
So
so
much better.
good. Yeah. How do you find that?
I'm okay because it's sort of a family friend. She's a lot like she's older. She's got like her kid and stuff who doesn't live here. She's out quite a lot of the time and like sort of have my own space and like because we get along and stuff, we like know each other's boundaries and you know it's just like it's basically like I'm having my own place and obviously I go to my girlfriend's quite a lot anyway. So it's sort of a in between the two, but like I'm very like stable and like happy where I am.
That's so good. I think so many people rush into like certain situations for like different reasons, that
Mhm.
it's just really good to have your own space, but also be in a situation where like, I don't know, if you're sharing with someone else, it's not a nightmare, you know?
Sure.
And I think especially like you were saying about having like those neurodivergent like tendencies of certain things that you can make you anxious, but like people would look at that as like you being irritated by certain things, whereas it
Yeah.
really deep down is like it makes you really uncomfortable and like anxious. It's really hard to explain, and I think like that's probably personally why I've struggled a lot with other people, is because they think you're fucking weird, and you're like, I'm not even, you know, like I'm not, if you could see my flat right now, it's so messy, but because I've just come back from like traveling, I'm trying to sort out all my shit. I can be messy, but like I cannot be unclean, do you know what I mean? Like that's the
Yeah,
thing for
it's
me.
different.
What, are you like that as well?
Yeah, I don't like dirty stuff. Like
Yeah.
I don't mind if stuff's like everywhere because it's sort of my mess and I know that it's just like a temporary mess. It's not
Mm.
like you're gonna stay there. It's not like dirt, if you get what I mean. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, dirt for me is just like plates, do you know what I mean? People that just will pile up like their food plates
Yeah.
that are just left over, like it makes me feel physically sick. And you don't want to be difficult, but you're like, I can't sleep at night knowing that like that's that, do you know what I mean? And that makes it really hard. And I don't know, I mean, I think that I'm sure that there are non-neurodivergent people that also feel like that, but it also tends to be, you know, OCD is part of the spectrum, and I definitely don't have OCD, but there are traits of things that I've noticed, well, like looking back over the years, that kind of fit into that. And that's what I mean in regards to like these traits. They are so like, yeah, I'm diagnosed dyslexic, but like I'm definitely on the spectrum. Do you know what I mean? What
Yeah.
are the things that are your sort of irritations, your triggers?
Yeah, so my sensory issues I've had since I was little, only became really like apparent that they was like maybe different like a few years ago. I always thought I was just like like kid things, but obviously as I've grown up, it's never changed. So like I've not eaten like a single fruit or vegetable since I was like 6 years old. I don't know how I'm alive. But like I eat meat and stuff, like I'm fine with that. Like I'm not like unhealthy. I don't just eat like, you know, like takeaway all the time. Like I do eat meat and like stuff like that, pasta, etc. But like just for me, like vegetables and fruit, like it's just in my head now that I can't eat it. And it's like a texture problem. So like if I put something in like I've tried to eat stuff like a strawberry, put it in my mouth and this thought of it making me feel sick, I can't do it. Like I physically can't eat it. And I've been in like relationships and stuff before where people have like called me childish and think it's like stupid. It's like it's not as simple as just eating it for
Mm,
me. Like I can't just eat, I can't just get over like that thing. Like it makes me like panic, like
yeah.
that texture in my mouth. Like I can't deal with that. So that's it's one of my irritations, I guess. Other thing is like just like certain textures and feelings of like my body. So like I always sleep with socks on. Like so I know some people like literally can like hate that and would be like, oh my God, I could not imagine sleeping with socks on every night. I could not get in my bed and sleep without socks on my feet. Like the feeling of it like cringes me out. I physically can't do it. I get overwhelmed, like the touch of it. And then sounds as well. So like a clock or anything like ticking, what sort of like in like a tempo, like anything like that. Like once I hear it, I cannot unhear it. So for years of my life, I've got like really bad like problems in my ears now with like overbuild of wax like constantly. I have to get them like cleared out because I for years just slept with earplugs in every night, like because I just need it to be like silent. I've got a little bit better with that now. Like I can sleep with like a fan on or a sound like that, but anything else I struggle with. So like snoring or like heavy breathing, like a partner, if it's in like a tempo and it's like a constant thing, once I clock onto it, like I cannot unhear it no matter how hard I try. And I'd go nights like without sleep because I just, unless I've plugged something in my ears, I just can't.
Do
Yeah.
you find like, I don't know, I suppose those kind of sensory issues with sounds, they're like when you're in a relatively quiet environment, right? Do you find that you get any kind of similar sensory issues of sound in loud settings, or is that totally
I
okay
seem
for
to be
you?
fine. So like a festival or anything like that. Like I get a bit overwhelmed with like the sense of being in a large space and a large crowd, but not like the noise is always fine for me. I think because I'm such a music person, I think I can, maybe it is there, but maybe I just know how to switch it off because I'm enjoying myself and I feel like happy. But yeah, it's usually just like quiet sounds. Like if I'm trying to unwind, I'm trying to like sleep. If it's not quiet, like there's no chance I'm be able to switch off like whatsoever. Like I'm just like going like 100 miles an hour, like focusing on that thing.
It's really interesting you say that, because I don't have like quite the same issues, but the minute it's quiet, I can hear a pin drop. Like literally I can hear like the smallest sound. And I think this is partly to do with being neurodivergent, but also partly to do with like other stuff, like not to get too grim, but like, you know, trauma and stuff,
Yeah,
right? That I've always been like a scared kid as well, like even when I was like really, really young. When it comes to like darkness, it's really weird because part of me like needs everything to be quiet and dark, and then part of me is scared of the dark, so it just depends where I can like put my brain, if that makes sense, like how
yeah.
I can like switch it off. The minute I start hearing something, exactly like you say, I can't unhear it. And like, because I live on my own, and then also I think it goes back to like my mum is deaf, my grandma was deaf, like sensory neural deafness runs in my family. Like luckily I don't have it, but they have
Mhm.
progressive deafness, so they get deafer the
Okay.
older they get. And I used to stay with my grandma when I was little, and I was so aware of the fact that she couldn't hear when she went to sleep because she'd take her hearing aids out, that I think I was like
All switched
really,
on.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And I think it goes back to then of like being so aware of sounds, like, oh my God, is someone trying to break in and like kill us? And then that's happened to me like with my mom, as the more she gets older and like gets more deaf, and then
Mhm.
living on my own. And then like
Yeah.
just things that have happened that make me more like on edge. I try, like I do so many things to like relax my brain, you know, I try and meditate and do yoga and stuff, but and it does help, definitely does help for those things, you know, like those like little triggers. But yeah, I wonder if that is something to being neurodivergent, that like once we hear something, it's like, I don't know, we really like, are our ears technically better? Like I don't think that makes sense, because there's
Yeah.
definitely like people that have deaf issues as well as being neurodivergent. But like, what is it in us that like we hear different things? You know, people talk about really autistic people having that ability to hear like electricity.
Yeah.
And sometimes I've like noticed sounds like that, or seen things, you know, when it comes to like flickering lights, that kind of thing. And I think it's more that that stuff is there. Probably everybody that has like good hearing can hear it, but like it's not that they can't like scientifically hear it, but we have this ability to like be switched onto it in a different way. It's very, or like sensitive, like we're more sensitive to it.
Yeah.
Fucking weird. It's so strange. On the flip side, it is, you know, it's now being looked at in, you know, different elements, but like as being a positive thing as well to be neurodivergent,
Mhm.
because like I know scientifically more about like dyslexia, for example. So like, and it's very similar with everything under the spectrum. It's to do with like our brains are the same, but the way that our brains work is different to neurotypical people. So like the channels in our brain, or the sections and the sides, are like more awake in certain patterns than like neurotypical people's are. For example, the way that I think as a dyslexic person, like a neurotypical person reads and it just goes from their eyes into their brain and back out, whereas for me it kind of like does this before it
Yeah.
comes back out, which is what makes it complicated. But that means that I'm able to like visualize and see things in a different way that neurotypical people can't.
Mhm.
And I think ADHD is very similar, and mostly ADHD and dyslexic people tend to be more creative. There's
Yeah.
there's a bit of a, like, I was always told that was like, that's it, like dyslexic and ADHD people are creative, that's it. And then my mum is a dyslexia tutor and an assessor, and like she's very clued in with all this kind of stuff, and she's like, it's not, that's like a generalization, like it's the majority are, but it's not always true. Like there are a few that like are dyslexic but they're not creative, but generally, you know, we're always like musicians, artists, like creative in some way, architects, because like we can think visually as opposed to like, I don't know, just we're more 3D, it seems to be, like in our way of thinking. So it's mad that like, I don't know, I guess we're into the same kind of music, you and me, right? And so in that respect, that's kind of what has drawn us to like meet and drawn us together. But then I just look in that like circle, that group of like people that I meet within that world, like the heavy music world, and so many of them are creative as well. And there must be some weird connection, I think, to like, do you know what I mean? Like heavy music and emo music, and then like being fucking neurodivergent and like,
yeah,
I don't know what that is. Like, have you ever thought about that as well?
Most of the people I know who are like neurodivergent, like are creative. Yes, like I can see that. Like even like famous people, like celebrities, like Youngbloods, like ADHD riddled, like crazy, like very open about it, which I love. A lot of my friends as well have got a lot of traits, and you know, think that they possibly are as well. My sister, for example, she's like very creative, like poetry, did sort of the same stuff as me in uni, like drama and stuff like that. So yeah, everyone I've sort of come across has always been like creative in some way, or has been like very into like creative stuff. So like even if they're not themselves, they're very into film, or like they're very into like music. Like they like love that type of thing. It's like very like stimulating, I guess. Like because it's something like going on what sort of like can like chill you out and like fills a lot of your brain. So like you're not like if I'm listening to music, like I'm not just thinking at 100 miles an hour anymore, because I'm like quite focused because I enjoy it. Whereas if like I'm sat in silence, or like I'm, you know, doing something else, I find it quite hard to not have like the same thought going on in my head like loads of times, like the same thing, which I can't shake, which is really frustrating. But yeah, like music takes me out of that. I think it's a big help in general.
Yeah, definitely. I think I remember there being some discussion about like potentially playing like Mozart during exams in schools, and they thought about doing it, and I think they trialed it in some places. For me, like that would have helped so much, because I even struggle now, you know, with just listening to music, like as in, because I love music. I was a musician. I was so similar to you. It's weird. I did poetry and art because I was like dyslexic. I was pushed to do like more, you know, other things. I did these like what do you call, like competitions for the Dyslexia Institute. It was like specifically for dyslexic kids, which was really nice, and like I did really well in them, so it made me feel like better. And yeah, poetry was like one of my main things, and then that led me on to like lyrics and like songwriting, and I was a musician for years. And it's those things that like doing them, as in like creatively making music, creatively doing artistic things, doing fashion, like I've always done like lots of things, because like you say, it fills your brain. And my brain is so loud, you know, there's like literally, like you were just describing, so many conversations and thoughts going on inside my head, like in one like moment. It's mad. And I don't know if it's got worse or I just notice it more now, but I'm always doing like multiple things. So like if I want to listen to new music, like it's fine if I'm driving, because I'm like, I can listen to the music, do you know what I mean? And then like you're also focused on the driving and where you're going and what you're doing. So it's like you're doing two things at one time. And obviously I know that everybody listens to music when they drive, but like for me, that's a real big help. I think I used to when I was younger, I would just put my headphones in, listen to an album and just like sit there. But actually, when I think about it, I was painting my nails, or I was drawing something, or I was writing something like at the same time. And that's me now. Like it's really weird because I like edit video. If it's got like if I'm talking in it, or it's got some kind of, you know, like sound on it, I can't listen to music at the same time. That's annoying. But then if I want to listen to music, or if there's like a new album, I'm like, okay, I need to like get into it. I need to be drawing, I need to be painting, I need to be writing, or I need to be cleaning, you know, like something else has to be like another task.
I can't just sit there.
Yeah,
like I don't just sit there with my music on. Like
Yeah.
I'll be like on my phone, or like, doing something else, like reading a book or something. Like if I'm reading, it's either got to have music in the background, or there's got to be like noise. I can't read
Yeah.
in silence either, because I struggle to like not think about different stuff as well as trying to read,
Yeah.
which is
Same.
so like if I'm on holiday and stuff and there's like background noise, there's people, you can hear like kids playing in the pool, like that's fine, because there's other stuff to like fill my brain, distract me. But I couldn't just sit in my room like silence right now and read. Not a
Yeah.
chance.
I find it so hard. I mean, like reading in general is an issue for me because I'm dyslexic. But like on top of that, with those kind of ADHD tendencies, when my brain is like literally exactly like you say, I'll be able to focus for a bit. I'll like sit there and then I'm like thinking something, I'm like, oh shit, I need to write that down, and I have to have like a break and go and do whatever that is, and then come back to it and do it for a little bit. And that's, I think, why like we don't have normal office jobs, because I've been told off whenever I've been like, I worked in retail for years, and that's fine because you're like constantly moving around, you're
Yeah.
doing things, you're talking to people. And then I went into like an office job, fashion PR, and I loved it. Like a lot of it in some respects is creative, like you're working with like creative brands and brands you like, but then loads of it is sat at a computer sending emails, making phone calls, like
Yeah.
typing, and then I would like have to take a break and talk to people next to me, and I get constantly told off. I'm like, I can't just sit there and
Yeah.
fucking be quiet and like read and
Yeah,
write.
I get distracted because I'm in like a creative role. It's kind of all right, and my team's like really creative as well. And we do have that sort of office banter where we do chat, and we go for get a drink every so often, like, and stuff like that. So it's fine. And because I'm doing like multiple things at once, because like I don't just like, have like one job, I'll have like a list, so I can sort of bounce in and out of jobs. I think if I was given sort of one thing to focus on, and that was my task for like the whole day, I'd I would lose concentration so quick. I need to like be able to bounce between different things. But then I find that I forget as well. So I'll start something and then move on to something else. And it's like the end of the day and I'm like, oh shit, like I was meant to finish that off. So I like go back.
Yeah.
But I find it quite useful, like working in the office. Like I do work 2 days from home, but I find on those days like I struggle more because I just sort of like I'll like zone out into something else, and it's really frustrating. But if I'm in the office, I've got
Yeah.
like my team like remind me and like, oh, have you finished that yet? And I'm like, oh shit, no, like I do it.
Thanks for chatting to me. I'll just kind of like ask you a few more questions. But yeah, going back to what you were just saying, 100%. Like, you said about writing lists. You have like a list of things to go through.
Yeah, so we have like a Trello board. Don't know if you know what Trello is. It's like an organizer. So we have our own like columns with our jobs in it. So like I can like refer to that. So yeah, that helps. But for like my personal stuff, I don't do lists, and I probably should because I forget things quite often.
Yeah, that is literally the only way. Like I don't know where I put it. Oh, here. My mum got me this, which is really good. It's a bit of a mess right now, but like it's also so great because it says 100 facts to-do list, right? And it's just like daily lists, right? Like this. And then there's always like a little interesting fact at the bottom,
Nice.
which like, I don't know, I just love to read. But yeah, honest to God, if I don't do that, I forget. And I do one there just as I'm like sat at my desk, like what am I to do things? But I also just throughout the day, like every day when I think of things, put it in my phone in like my Google
Yeah.
diary, because genuinely I won't get stuff done. And don't get me wrong, like I tried to keep to that, and then there are days where I'm like, I haven't written a list in ages and I haven't done any of the things I was meant to do. But it's honestly, it's a big thing for me. And like I have like not actual arguments, but like it's taken me a long time to get to my mum, like into my mum's head, that if she needs to do things, like whenever I go to see her, I'm like, please write a list, because she'll be like, oh, there's this, and then there's this, and then there's this, and then there's it, but we don't have to do it all today. And I'm like, we'll get like one thing done, and then it's like, oh, next time you come. And it's like I could have done more of these things if it was
Totally.
planned out. But like if
Mhm.
it's like quite different things as well, like driving her here to do this, or like helping her with something, I don't know, getting rid of it. We're trying to like declutter her house and stuff like that. So it's like loads of different jobs that need doing. Or it's like she's bad at computer stuff. Like, oh, could you help me with this thing on a computer? Can you do? If it's in a list, I can plan it out in my head, and I know that I won't get overwhelmed. But if someone's just saying to me, okay, you're doing that, and then it's like, oh, by the way, there's this, or by the way, there's that, if I
Yeah.
don't know, like you said, at least you can look and work at that like list, and like in your head you're like, okay, these are things I can do, and like you'll start with one. And yeah, I get you kind of, you realize you've gone on to another one and haven't finished one, but at least there's like productive stuff happening there. Do you know what I mean? that's just your way of doing it.
Do you ever get like overwhelmed or like upset if like it's come to the end of the day and you've not finished your list? Like, does that bother you if there's still stuff left on it?
Yes and no. I think I've got like this way of dealing with it where I'm like so happy with myself if I've even got 2 of the things done,
Okay,
because
yeah.
I just carry on the list, you know, for the next day. I'm like, okay, and it kind of helps me because then the next day when I look at the list, I'm like, oh, there's only 3 things to do now.
Yeah.
Try to keep it like that as opposed to being like a fresh list every single day. And I obviously add to it, or I start a new one when I've finished it, but like try to make it less overwhelming by being like, I guess, kind to myself with it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. I get, it's really hard to explain, but like I was gonna say I get overwhelmed really easily. I do and I don't, because you know, I've gone through my whole life like trying to understand life and cope with it in this like way that my brain works. But it can be really hard to explain to people. Like, that's what I mean by, I haven't had an argument with my mom about making a list, but I low-key almost have, because I'm like, I don't think you get it. Like, it's really frustrating me that you're not listening to me. Like, I'm telling you, we'll get these things done and we'll like get along easier. Just write it on a list. Like, I don't get, and I'll like go and start a list. I'm like, right, what are these things? And I'll like start writing them down. She's like, well, we're doing it already. And I'm like, that is not the point. My brain needs to like see it, you know? And I think I've had just like general therapy, right? Like, I just went and had like a bunch of general therapy that was amazing to me, just in general, like irrelevant to being neurodivergent. But I think what that taught me was stuff that I just needed to know as a human to like better cope with life. But I think it was like, because I didn't think about it at the time, but like because I'm neurodivergent, like I'm not thinking in a way, you know, like I was just things like that, like simple things like just writing a fucking list to like get it out of my head and like, no, here's a plan. I just didn't used to do that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And then I'd feel exactly what you just said, where you're like, you get through the day and you're like, oh, I forgot that thing, or I hardly got anything done today. Whereas the best thing I ever did was I also have like a bigger planner, and sometimes I use that and I write in it, and it's like all these things I just need to get done throughout. Literally, I'll say like the month, you know, like give myself like a lot of time to do it. And even things like then I do the daily one, right? And even things like eating, doing the washing up, all those little things go on there, and it makes me feel better that I'm like, I've accomplished that. And that might sound fucking lame to some people. I don't give a shit because it makes me feel good.
Yeah, good. As long as it makes you feel good, that always matters.
Exactly. And I think, yeah, I remember a big celebrity, I'm not going to say who, like almost laughing at an influencer when we were at a dinner, who he had started to say he'd been to therapy and he'd been like writing a diary every day, and he'd been putting in it like manifestations and like affirmations and things, and just like ticking off, you know, like I say, just simple lists of like what he's accomplished each day. And they were like, this male celebrity was like, and he's a big advocate for mental health, he's a really nice guy, but it kind of pissed me off because he was like, what, you need to write down what you're thankful for every day, can't you just know that? Like, do you know what I mean? And I was like, no, like what's wrong with it? Why does it bother you? You know what I mean? Like, why is that a negative thing? Like, I think it's there's like scientific proof that like when you physically write things as well, like it just sits in your brain easier because the connection between like our hand and our brain, so it's gonna like amplify that gratitude, you know?
Yeah, for sure.
Do you think you might start writing lists?
I might start writing lists, you know. We'll see. Tomorrow I might wake up and I might write a list. I have to keep updated on that.
Yeah, please do. Oh, well, thank you so much for chatting to me. I really appreciate it. It's been lovely hearing all about your accomplishments and your crazy neurodivergent brain like mine. Fantastic neurodivergent brain. I think it's what makes us like alt emo kids as well, but that's just my opinion.
I agree. That's why we're all a little bit weird.
Yeah, exactly.
Or
100%.
you know, kind of weird.
Yeah.
Outcast vibes, but you know.
We're fucking cool is what we are.
We are cool. You know, I was at Download Festival. Was you there in the guest area? No.
Exactly. Thank you so much, mate. I will put all of your like tags on the screen below here. Do you just want to shout them out really quick?
Yes, my Instagram is demi.j, which is Jay, and my TikTok is dems.j, Jay.
There we go. And then if you go on there, you'll see all the links to like your music and your art and stuff, won't you?
Yes, everything's there.
Yeah, sweet. Oh, thank you so much, mate.
You are so welcome.
And I'll chat to you soon. Peace out.
Yeah, sure. See you later.
Bye.